Yeah, that's a little better, man. A lot better.
Um,
Can you hear me okay, though?
I can hear you.
Loud and clear?
Yes, indeed.
All right, I can hear you loud and clear too, man. I just got off the phone with Tony.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, man. Contract is getting a little crazy around here, dude. He said y'all got a new person and you don't have Freddie anymore.
What?
No, Freddie's not with y'all no more, man. So, you know, it's kind of tough. He's got to let some folks go. Don't worry, you're not one of them.
Mm.
I thought I'd put that out there real early and let you know. But I'm going to be interviewing him because, Tony is a coach.
Right.
I don't know if you knew that or not.
Yeah. He has a 501(c) company, Will to Win, something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I did a whole video layout for him a little while ago. So I'm going to use some of that as I intro him and what he's doing with his Will to Win program. So, but Kim, man, he was telling me that you played or was in line for semi-pro football or something like that. He said, man, ask Kim about that stuff. I said, Kim, man, like a quiet, gentle giant, he don't tell nobody nothing about what's going on with him.
Not unless you ask.
Well, first of all, Kim, let me just welcome you to the Coffee Break podcast and book club. This was inspired by the Mighty Cardinals film project that I'm currently working on. And the Mighty Cardinals is a high school team. The Cardinals is the mascot. Back in Jacksonville, North Carolina in the 80s, we were a powerhouse team. And now that we're older, we're all gray and we kind of reflect back on those experiences. We had a lot of guys, man, who we felt like they were easily NFL players. They were easily D1 players who, for whatever reasons, could never make it outside the box. Now that we are older and we reflect and look back on those things, we want to talk about lessons learned so that a younger generation now don't repeat a lot of the mistakes that a lot of us actually made. And I tell you, I was talking to one parent. He played football for the Mighty Cardinals, and he had an interesting take. He said back in high school, the Cardinals were so powerful in his mind that that's all he wanted to do, play high school football for the Cardinals. He said, I didn't even think about football or life after high school. So his senior year, he would go into the classrooms and put his head on the desk all day. He didn't get no work done. Turns out he was academically ineligible and he could not even play football his senior year because he had no eligibility academically in high school. Mm-hmm. So he said his biggest regret was not hitting those books when he was in high school. If somebody would have intervened in his life at that time to correct him of that mistake, he really felt like he'd be a whole lot further along. So that I told him, I said, KD, I want you to come on the show and talk about that because young people need to hear about that because that's really in line with this book that I am actually doing for the podcast book, Coffee Break Book Club. This book dealing with the academic scandal at UNC Chapel Hill, which is a very interesting book. So I'd like to get into some of that with you, Kim. But first of all, why don't you, for those who don't know you, you and I, we work together, but for those who don't know you, why don't you do an introduction, who you are, where you're from, and how we ended up here?
Okay. All right. My name is Kim Jones. I am from Annapolis, Maryland. I attended the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. I went there on what was called Grant and Aid at the time.
Grant and aid.
Grant and Aid, yes. They didn't call it athletic scholarship. You grant and aid. You had to do some work. So my job was to sweep up the basketball stadium. I had to pick up all the litter during basketball season. That was my job, and mine and several others. So
Okay.
that's what we did. So
Well, what
from
high
there,
school? What high school did you?
excuse
What
me,
high
yeah.
school did you go to?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Let me digress a little bit. I went to Annapolis High School, home of the Fighting Panthers. Now, let me tell you a little story on that. As I was growing up in Annapolis, my home was right across the street from the only segregated Black high school in the state, well, in the city of Annapolis,
Wow.
in Anne Arundel County. So everybody from the county came to that school, and everybody in the county who was Black came to
Right.
that school. So
Was this
therefore,
like in the 80s or the 70s or
this
what
was in
era
the
are we talking
60s.
about?
This
It was in
was
the
in
60s.
the 60s.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So at that time, Bates High School was the the powerhouse. Powerhouse. Now you know that was it Plessy versus Board of Education was
Brown, it was Brown versus Board of Education.
sorry, Brown. I'm sorry, Brown
Desegregation.
versus Board of Education.
Yes.
Segregation. So we were a powerhouse. We were turning out kids. We had kids that were going. Well, I wasn't there at that time. I mean, I was in elementary school at that time.
Right.
So then 1966, segregation hit. There was two high schools, one all white, one all Black.
Mm-hmm.
Guess which one they closed down? We know that.
The African American. Yes.
That's right. So then everybody went to Annapolis Senior High School.
Okay.
Yeah. So that influx of talent that was so deep and rich at Bates High School now was at Annapolis High School. And from the 70s on up to the 90s, I mean, we were powerhouse football, basketball, track and field, and throw in lacrosse there at that time.
Okay.
It was all getting mixed up and mashed up. So that is my experience in high school. Now, my senior year, they didn't have the state playoffs, but we were the #2 team ranked in the state,
Mm-hmm.
state of Maryland. So that meant that we lost one game, and that was to Archbishop Curl in DC.
Okay.
We would play all of the metro powers. So in DC, it was Archbishop Curl. Baltimore, it was City College. And then we had to contend with all the other county schools in our. So we won that.
Mm-hmm.
The county, we won the region, and we won the region playoff. That's before they went on and had the state playoffs the next year. We turned around in basketball. We even advanced further. We won the state tournament in our class AA, which was at that time considered the largest class in the state of Maryland. We played the likelihood, the Archbishop Carroll, the Mather High School, St. John's, all of those schools. So we knew we were good. We know we were producing top caliber players, and it always wondered to myself, it's like, as good as we are, how come we don't have a pipeline set up like kids are going to College Park?
Right.
I mean, I went to see College Park, and I went to see some of their games, and I'm comparing myself, and then I'm comparing some of the guys that I played with, and it was a no-brainer to me. Our kids could have played there, but they never seemed to reach those heights. And that
Mm-hmm.
went on from the time that I was there right on into the 1990s, the same thing. We still reaching the tournament, the playoffs.
Right.
You know, we have the Division I caliber students, caliber players, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
They're not advancing further than not even a mid-major school. They're going to a Division II now. There's nothing wrong with Division IIs, but I mean, if you got the caliber to go Division I, and that's what this thing is all about. This thing is all about positioning yourself to ultimately get what you want to go. So if you want to go to, if you think you have an idea that you want to go and play professionally somehow,
Right.
you want to position yourself to go to a D1 school, D1 scholarship, where they know people will be looking at you and you have a better opportunity to play. So it's all about positioning. And yeah, that's basically me. Went to Annapolis High School, went to the University of Maryland Eastern Shore.
Well, let me ask you this then. You talk about that pipeline to the D1 big leagues. I think the coach plays a major role in that. Do you think that your coaches were instrumental at the high school level in getting their kids into that D1 level, or did they have their special kids that they liked?
And that's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say that they had the special kids that they're like, because when I was coming through, now I made all Met second team. Now making all Met, at least it guarantees you at least all the top schools in the area would come out.
Right.
All county, you get the little local schools, and then all Met, you get the schools, the bigger schools, the American universities, you know, to come after you, to recruit you. But I didn't see any of those. So I'm like, wait a minute, I made all Met, and I haven't received no letters, no anything. And a number of my contemporaries were the same way, that they didn't receive any letters based upon, you know, one guy made all state. So you make all state and you parade all American, everybody in America is coming after you. But that didn't happen. So I didn't think about it then, but now I think about it more, as you say, as we get grizzly, as we get older. What effect did the coach have on us? Because any person who's being recruited, they go to the coach first. They ask the coach, what kind of athlete is this kid? What kind of student is this kid? This kid playing my team. So I'm like, okay, this must be the bottleneck here. Our coach must be doing something so that we don't get that information disseminated to us, so that we can, you know, go to the next level. So I was thinking about writing a book, because in my community, the high school, the coach, he was a white guy, Al Armour, and everybody revered him. Yeah, he won a lot, but what did he do for his athletes to, when they attempted to go to the next level? You know, now, I know everybody's not going to go and get some sort of Division I scholarship, not even a Division II scholarship. But at least there should have been some sort of pipeline interest to the coach. Hey, you can go 2 years here, and then you can come back here. Those kinds of conversations never came up. And you know, as the longer I live, I ask myself, why did they not come up? Yeah.
Is the coach still alive?
No, he passed on.
In the film, The Mighty Cardinals, we bring in a rumor, we bring in a secret. The rumor, of course, is a lot of the athletes were receiving letters, but were not getting the letters physically in their hands. So the universities had expressed interest, but once those letters were sent to the athletic department or to the coach, some of the kids were finding their letters in the trash can. That was one of the rumors. One of the secrets about allowing athletes to reach that pinnacle athletically was to relieve them of any kind of serious heavy-duty academic course loads. So they were relegated more to special education type of classes, home economics where you're cooking, and or shop where you're doing carpentry. And there's nothing wrong with those things. But those were classes that a lot of the athletes found themselves in, and it was never questioned. So that by the time they came around in their senior year, they may not have been academically eligible for Notre Dame or Syracuse, even though physically they're at that level. Can you identify with any of those rumors or secrets that we bring out in the film project, Mighty Cardinals?
Now, I can say that, in fact, I did hear of one of the guys on the team that played after I played, where he wasn't getting his letters until the coach called his house directly.
Oh, okay.
He had been trying to get in contact with him.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, see, you got to put that in context, though, because a lot of people listening are not understanding. What you are saying is that a college coach went around the program and reached the student athlete directly.
Directly, yes.
Okay. All right.
They can do that. Some of the assistant coaches can do that. They have a window in which they do that. So they just went around and then talked to the individual, like, we try to contact you, what was going on.
Right.
So that was one of the things. Now, I do believe that may in fact have been the case. It actually, those two dynamics may have both been the case. Some kids weren't getting their letters, and there was let me first say that none of the guys that I played with took any classes that were considered special ed, that they couldn't go anywhere, because everybody that I played with went off to college somewhere. Right. I mean, everybody, if it was, they went to Morgan, they went to Bowie, they went to Howard, they went somewhere. So they were qualified to go to school. There was one guy on our team that ended up being vice president of Quaker Oats in Chicago. He was on top of everything.
Right.
So and in that case, that was one of the players where maybe the coach definitely identified with him a lot more than he identified with anybody else.
So he was one of the favorites.
Yeah, he was one of the favorites. He went to the University of Penn.
Okay.
Yeah, he went to the University of Penn, played football there, and then, like I said, got his MBA from Wharton School of Business and all that other things. And but again, he was one of those favorites. He got the publicity.
Right.
He got his letters because I'm thinking back and reflecting. Hey, Kim, the Oklahoma. Talk to me.
Right.
What? Oklahoma?
Well, if Oklahoma is looking at him, then there are other scouts seeing you all at the same game.
Exactly.
Right. Well, you mentioned Bates High School and the transition over with integration to Annapolis Senior High School. We had a similar school. It was called Georgetown, which was the African-American school at that time before segregation. When segregation kicked in, Georgetown mysteriously burned down. So all of the athletes and students that were in Georgetown had to be integrated into Jacksonville Senior High School, similar to what you're talking about with the Annapolis Senior High School. Now, I will say this to Jacksonville's credit, they did bring over an African-American coach. His name was Coach Gideon Johnson. Now, as I understand the late, great Gideon Johnson, for kids, student athletes who did not get the big time D1 offers, who had the athletic ability, apparently, this is just a rumor, I don't know for sure, Coach Gideon Johnson was very instrumental in getting scholarships for those athletes that did not get the big D1 offers. So they ended up at schools like Elizabeth City, Johnson C. Smith, those type or caliber of schools, not your Clemson, not your UNC, Chapel Hill type of institutions. So did Annapolis Senior High, did the coaching staff have an African-American coach that, you know, the athletes felt that they could identify with?
No, they didn't. They didn't. They did not. I always wondered why that wasn't. Then when I graduated in 78,
Mm-hmm.
not in 78, but when I graduated, then they hired a Black coach.
Okay.
Yeah, came after I left, yeah.
But you ended up at the University of Maryland. University of Maryland Eastern Shore, isn't that a D1 school?
That is a D1 school,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
A D1 school.
Tell me how you got the scholarship or land grant aid, as you call it.
Yeah. Okay.
Tell me how they worked that out.
All right, my math teacher.
Okay.
My math teacher, he went to that school. He said, he asked me, he said, what are your plans on going to college?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't have any right now because nobody's offered me anything.
Mm.
He said, well, okay, you can take a look at the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. We have football programs, and just that year before I came down there, they had 7 guys that signed with the World Football League. So they're like, oh, okay, that sounds good. Maybe good things can happen. Mm-hmm. So that's why I went down there, because of him. He attended school down there. He played baseball down there, and he said, well, look, I'll take you down there if you need to go, if you want to see the school. That's how I ended up down there. I didn't go anyplace else because I didn't get any kind of information from anybody else.
Well, in hindsight now, just to be fair and to balance things out a little bit, how supportive or astute were your parents, uncles, aunties, when it came to education or higher education and putting you in a position to transition to a D1 university? Even if you take football out of the equation, do you feel as though your family gave you the foundation to go to a major university and succeed?
Probably not from my parents.
Okay.
My dad, I don't think he finished high school.
Mm-hmm.
My mom, she was a licensed practical nurse, so she knew that education was important. My dad also knew it, but he didn't say anything. But at that time, my biggest influence was my older sister. She was like 5 years older than me.
Okay.
And she just wanted to do things her way. So she told my mother, father, look, I don't want to go to school over there with those kids.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go to this private school.
Right.
She convinced my mom to send her to a private school. And I sort of followed her lead. She went to school. She said, I'm going to college. I'm going to go to Bowie State, even if I have to pay for it myself.
Right.
Which she did. So I looked at her aspirations and the books that she brought home from school. I was like, good gracious. So that was my influence to go. My sister.
Okay. So what about the guidance counselors at the high school?
I think I met with them maybe once. Again, like I said, we were no longer a Black high school.
Right.
We were in a high school where they were used to dealing with all white kids.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody wanted to have as little contact as they could with black students. Honestly,
Really?
little contact. So I can remember in junior high school, which was predominantly black,
Right.
that it was the counselors made it a practice of talking to everybody in the school at least twice a year. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, twice a year is not a whole lot, but it was like it was your turn to go down and you talk with them and you tell them what you aspire to be when you go to high school.
Mm-hmm.
High school, all that stuff just like didn't exist. It was like everything was on you.
Right.
And if you didn't if you didn't take the initiative to go and find out, then you never were going to find out. Honestly.
Right. Right. Well, I tell you, just listening to you, it sounds like to me, and you may have a difference of opinion, but it sounds like to me, Kim, you balance the student athlete scenarios here. You know, you successfully finished high school. You played football in high school, and someone mentored you in such a way that you can transition to a University of Maryland Eastern Shore, which is a D1 school. And for all sense and purposes, if I'm not mistaken, you actually graduated from the University of Maryland and Eastern Shore.
I sure did.
My friend, that is a success story.
Yes.
Now, in hindsight, if you can roll back the rim, what would you do differently going back to high school?
Well, that's easy. I would have took more what do you call the class? The advanced classes, the IB
AP classes.
AP classes. Yes, yeah.
Okay.
I would have took more of those. I'd have been more astute in classroom. I would have been more wanting to be competitive with everybody. You know, I'm going to say this: football brings out the confidence in you. When you have success in something, whatever it is, you want to keep it going. So you're going to do everything that you can to keep it going. So I had success in football. People were starting to look, you know, and then you respond one or two ways. You respond to like everybody is going to give you this praise, but you're going to earn it because you're going to do all those things, or you're going to go in the other direction, be absolutely out of your mind and just do anything. But yeah, the thing for me was that I wanted to be better. I wanted a lot more things in life at the time. I just kept on going on that course.
So for all sense and purposes, it sounds like to me, in hindsight, what you would have done is academically elevated yourself for major universities like, I guess, Pittsburgh, University of Pennsylvania, those type of caliber of schools is where you believe you should have been academically. Right. Now, I'm going to throw something at you because I don't know if you remember telling me this, but I'm going to refresh your memory. You had said to me that you would just abolish the whole athletic program altogether. Do you remember saying that, sir?
Yes, I would. I do.
Okay. All right. Now, you've got to explain that to everybody who's listening to you.
Okay. Now, see, football is a business. D1 sports is a business.
Right.
Now, if a kid wants to play sports, he should be able to train as hard and as long as he wants to gain the physical strength and the mental knowledge to compete. So do away with all intercollegiate athletics. Do away with it. Now, What you have left is what colleges started with in the beginning, intramural sports.
Mm-hmm.
And you involve everybody on your campus in
Right.
intramural sports. They're playing sports. They're still getting their physical fitness. But
Mm-hmm.
for those guys and girls who want hardcore and they're going to school as a byproduct, because they're going to use the school as a farming system to go into their professional ranks. Just
Mm-hmm.
do away with that altogether. Form maybe 6 sports colleges in each state.
Mm-hmm.
The top athletes go to these sports college. They get all the facilities, all the nutrition,
Mm-hmm.
all the academics that they need. They play against those other colleges that's in their state.
Mm-hmm.
That money from there, they get paid a stipend. They get paid a stipend. Then they have the likeness rules. If you're good enough and you're the quarterback and everybody wants you, and they want you to come to McDonald's and you sign some autographs, you can do all those things to make money.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what you aspire to do.
Right.
When it's all over after 5 years, you don't make it. You
Mm-hmm.
have made money, we hope,
Mm-hmm.
or you had saved enough money so that you can now go on to college.
Mm-hmm.
Now you will have full focus on everything, because then, I mean, once you play some kind of sport, that's the first thing that coaches tell you. I want you to concentrate on this. I want you to concentrate on being the best athlete you can. So
Mm-hmm.
how are you going to concentrate on being the best athlete you can when you got a AP chemistry class that you
Mm-hmm.
go to 8 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock in the evening when this
Mm-hmm.
coach is telling you that? So we should have a complete divide. But the only reason why they have these sports is because the revenue that's generated from it helps them build new libraries, new buildings,
Mm-hmm.
all kinds of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's the reason why they have it. Plus the fact that when you win, you're a consistent winner. Everybody wants to be associated with a winner.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Most people don't know what Notre Dame is or where Notre Dame is, but you mentioned Notre Dame, the first thing they think about is football. You mentioned
That's right.
Alabama, the same thing. I don't know what kind of programs they have there, but they
Right.
got the best winning football team. So
Right.
that's the advertisement that the school's looking for.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, see, this what gets me now. Now, the coach at Alabama, he is the highest paid state employee because they work for the state of Alabama.
Right.
And this guy makes $10 million a year.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we're not talking about his tennis shoe contracts and all this other stuff he get from speaking engagements,
Mm-hmm.
but he makes $10 million from the state.
Right.
And then that goes down to these athletes, and all they get is scholarships. And unfortunately, most of those guys come from areas where they want to get out. And
Mm-hmm.
so they're going to do whatever they can to get out. They're blessed with talent. They have a sense of knowledge of how to get there. So, hey, I'm going to go to Alabama. I'm going to stay there 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
by hook or by crook. And then after that, I should be ready to go to the NFL.
Right. Okay. So I think the word you use in terms of abolishment is a very strong word. And I think that the bus has already left the station on this one. Now, now the Supreme Court has ruled against the NCAA. If you are a high school kid and you want to wear the McDonald's hat after the game and get paid for doing that, you can do it, and that's not an NCAA violation anymore.
Right.
If you're playing football at the collegiate level and you're wearing a dishwasher or whatever kind of shirt with the logo of the company at the end of the game, you can get paid for that.
Right.
And it's not a violation. So now in the new era of the big time sports and money payout that you're talking about, does that even the playing field for the student athlete?
No, it doesn't. It's still
Okay.
business. You still have to perform. You still have to maintain your eligibility. No, I don't think so. Again, I would tell anybody I'm firmly against right now intercollegiate sports. It should be done away with because it's a waste of time for some kids if they want to play sports. Take for example, I knew this guy, and we used to sit down and we talked about football. He went to Purdue.
Right.
Purdue would bring in 85 players every year. Purdue University. And this guy would tell me that the guys came there for 1 year, played football. The only thing they went to do was to eat. They went to practice. They came back to their room. They never went to class. Football season was over. It was over for them. They left the school.
Right.
That's what I mean. It's a waste.
But Kim,
he wants to focus on the sport. Let him focus on the sport.
Kim, you're not being honest with your audience, and I gotta talk about this. I gotta bring it up because you're not bringing it up. Isn't it true, Kim, that you have successfully balanced the athletic and academic forum and produced two children that went on to do the same thing at major D1 institutions?
Right.
Talk about that.
Right. Well, actually, I had 3 children.
Okay.
A boy and 2 girls. Now, as with most young men, they are into everything else. Because I played football, I wanted my son to play football.
Right.
I couldn't even get that guy to watch football with me. What is that? I don't want to mess around. So, all right. So, but my 2 daughters, they were interested in it, and I was like, gee, they offering all kinds of scholarships and everything. Let's see what we can do to get one. They went to private school, so they were well versed academically, and then the sports thing sort of just fell into their lap because actually my kids were both of my one daughter is 6 foot, the other one is 6'4".
Okay.
So it's like, oh, you're 6'4". Let's see if you can play basketball. Let's see if you can play volleyball. Okay, so they tried it. They sort of liked it, and they excelled at it. They didn't become top 5 or 5-star, all of those things, but they played it well enough because they enjoyed it, and they were noticed because in this sports realm, if you're physically big, they think that we can make you do something.
Right.
So I said, okay, well, I know I have no problem with you all trying to do this because I know you're gonna get the education first.
Okay.
So, Dad said, that's cool. If we can get 2 years out of it, that's cool. And so that's pretty much what happened. They play like 3 years each, and then focused on school and and continuing in that way.
So you said 3 years each. Now, what I'm hearing you say is you didn't give them the soccer ball at age 5 and 6 and say you're going to go to college, a D1 scholarship, and the kid is 5 years old. You're saying that as they
I did that with my son, but I did that with my son, but he I gave him the ball, he threw it back at me. I don't want that. So my daughter saw it, and they looked at it. Hey, okay, maybe we can do something with this, and they did. They didn't get it at they didn't get it at 5 and 6. They got it at 10 and 11.
Okay.
So that's when it happened. Yeah.
And what schools did they ended up going to in college?
Well, my youngest daughter went to Chatham.
Okay.
Chatham is a private girls' school in Pittsburgh, and my daughter, she went to Louisville.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and you know, we did all of this training for basketball. Louisville had one of the best women's basketball team in the country. But I think, like I said, well, you need to kind of stay in shape for basketball. Let's pick up another sport. So she picked up rowing, and that's where the scholarship came from, rowing.
Okay. Okay. This is the one at the University of Louisville, right?
Right.
Okay.
And then at Chatham, it was volleyball and basketball.
Full athletic scholarships.
Yeah.
Okay. So they graduated
Yeah.
without any college debt.
Right. That's it. That's what I was looking for. Without taking out loans, no debt.
Well, Kim, you know, you could say however you want to say it. You are a success story, sir. And it sounds like to me, you got something from your sister that was able to sustain you enough so that you can pass it on to your daughters and your son, and give them at least a good start and a foundation. And that's really, Kim, what we're looking for these type of stories, because there's so many tragic stories that we're reading about, you know, in these books. We want to empower parents, because what I've come across is a lot of people that say, man, it starts with the parents. It is not the coach. It is not the guidance counselors. Everything starts with the parents.
It starts at home, right?
So what would you recommend as a student athlete yourself, raising kids? Do you give them the basketball? Do you give them the football? Do you give them the math book? Do you give them the social studies book? Or do you give them both? Help me balance it out. In hindsight now, what would you do differently with your children, that is?
Now I would gave them the balls earlier.
Okay.
Hey, because now, you know, this is, if you position yourself well, man, you can get almost anything.
So it wouldn't be just the standard football, basketball. You would be looking at a variety of different athletic programs.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, my daughter the oldest one wanted to go to the Naval Academy. And she decided she didn't want to go to the Naval Academy. And she said, well, Dad, I think I want to go to the Merchant Marine Academy. So she was thinking about that and didn't go to Merchant Marine Academy. So then after all of that was over, then Louisville and North Carolina, then the University of Miami. And then they called up and they said, here's a plane ticket for you to fly down to Miami. I said, are we both going down to Miami? No. Just me, Dad, just me.
Well, how exactly did the schools come to an awareness of your daughter's athletic ability? Were they at the state level or something, or summer camps, or what happened?
I'm still trying to figure that one out. She had 2 regattas. And the regattas was in Occoquan, Virginia. Okay. So they both won one of the events. I have no idea. So they won that. But then one day she was practicing on, they have a rowing machine, and so she rowed a time. I had no idea what the time was. I wasn't following rowing that much. She came home and she told me that. I said, yeah, that sounds great. I'm saying to myself, so what does that mean? Well, subsequently, I found out that all of the rowers in all the schools that had rowing teams, this was a way to track players by what they rowed at certain speeds or times or events, or I should say distances. And hers was must have been the best or close to the best in the area at that time.
Okay. And the interesting thing about the sport of rowing, it sounds like to me it's tied into the private school.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
So now we're making some connections here
Mhm.
because in most private, or sorry,
Most public schools, they don't have rowing. Right?
Exactly, they don't. So there was a variety of different pieces that had to come into play here. Obviously, one, your daughter being athletic, that had to come into play. But that academic piece and that foundation that you laid presented the opportunity for her to even show up on the registry upon
Right.
which someone can look at the numbers and say, hey, those numbers look good to me. And that's a non-traditional sport. That's what we call the Olympic sports. And a lot of times people are not looking at Olympic sports as scholarship opportunities, but that's what you're saying, that those opportunities are there.
Exists, yes.
Okay. Well, Mr. Kim Jones, I going up on my hour, and we need to do a part 2 with you because there's a whole lot more here. And as we go deeper into this book, Cheated, I would love to get some of your insights on some of the things that I'm reading in this book, and some of the tragic stories, and not just with the student athletes, but for those academic scholars who came to support the student athletes who lost their jobs, lost their stature at the universities for going out on the limb, or a group of student athletes who are disproportionately African-American males. So that's a topic I definitely at some point in time want to share with you. I'm going to encourage you to get the book and join the book club and pick up one of these chapters that we can have a dialogue and sit down and enjoy another cup of coffee and discuss. I really would like your insights on some of these matters that I'm covering now in that book. I think Mary Willingham did an exceptional job along with the professor, and it really inspired this whole coffee break because as I'm reading this stuff, I'm saying to myself, man, we got to talk about this. This is a big story. And a lot of African Americans hadn't jumped on this, and I'm surprised a lot haven't jumped on this, because if you're a student athlete, especially in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, this is your story.
Right.
Everybody knows somebody who was a great athlete that did not get a shot.
Right.
And we have to go into the reasons why. And we got to start looking at the K through 12 pipeline and find the success that you have found and apply that success to our young people so that they have an opportunity to succeed. Because I think you had told me one time before your daughter is trying to go off into law school.
That's correct.
See, man, there's a lot in you, man. You be holding back, Kim. You're holding back, man. But I hope that you come back and join me on one of these more sensitive subject matters. I think Miss Mary Willingham goes into the whole civil rights piece. And I think that there's definitely an interest on your part in having that type of conversation.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
All right. Well, my friend, we're at the hour. I'm not going to hold you or the audience anymore, but I do appreciate you coming on the Coffee Break podcast and sharing your experience, and I hope to have you back.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, Kim, I'm going to go ahead, man, and stop the recording.